Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. I am Sean Tasse, joined by illustrious co-host and pal Kyle Miller. Kyle, how are you doing this beautiful December Friday?
Trying to make it nicer out, so I wore my Hawaiian style shirt today. So it's got some Hawaiian flowers on it.
Was that Hawaiian flowers? Any pineapple?
I think so.
Some pineapple.
No, not on this one. That's the other one.
Here's a skill testing question. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yeah, fight me. Yes, all day long.
I will not fight you because I also put pineapple on pizza. We are cut from the same cloth. You need that sweet add into your
salty. Sweet and salty is my killer. Go for it.
Absolutely. As always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, download this, and share it with someone who you think might be interested in what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about, we're into 1 week of TRESA has happened. The rate just been announced a couple days ago, and they are holding steady. We also have coming down the pipe the RCP, not the Real Collective podcast, but the Realtor Cooperation Policy is going to kick in Jan 1. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
You are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thanks so much. If you would like to schedule an appointment with Kyle or I, you can do so in the Calendly links below. And also in the links below, new for you is both a buyer guide and a seller guide. So you can get into either of those if you're thinking about buying or you're thinking about selling over the course of 2024. And beyond, I guess, if you're watching this in the future, feel free to link up and see what you need to do to set yourself up to buy and what you need to do to set yourself up to sell. Whew. All right. So, Kyle, hit me. Tell us. Let's talk about rates. Let's talk about rates holding still first. We'll get into the TRESA and the RCP in the second half. What does it mean for the consumer that the Bank of Canada has just said, hey, the overnight posted rate will not be going up for the second announcement in a row? Was this expected?
I think it was expected. Cracks are definitely starting to show in economically speaking. We're staring down the barrel of recession if we're not technically already in one. I think it depends on who you're listening to. And it's with it slowing down right before Christmas, it's going to show, I think we'll really see the effect of everything they've done over the last 18 months into the first quarter of next year, right? So January, February, March, because there's a lag, right? We've talked about that before. There's always a lag. So if they have already seen it start to slow, and then they see December being Christmas really start really slow, then that'll probably trigger them to lay low, and then that will spur whatever presumptions the market decides, right? Because I say it more and more, it's just language is so key with this stuff, because for the bank held or overnight rate, fine. That means if you're on a variable rate mortgage or you have a line of credit, nothing's changing in your life. Not good, not bad. But people want to say, oh, great, the fixed rates are staying. It's like, well, no, the fixed rates move completely differently for different reasons. So what we've actually seen is that the fixed rates have actually, specifically 5-year and some of the 3 years, have started to come down, which is interesting. And that's based on the fact that the markets presume things aren't looking great and that things are going to start to drop. So that's how it starts to roll. So it's not bad news, but I want to say too, it's not great news either, because there's a reason they do this, and that's to stimulate. And if they need to stimulate, it's because people aren't spending money. And if people aren't spending money, it's because they don't have jobs, they don't have the wealth to do it. So there's bigger problems when interest rates come down. We're not going to live in a time where it's like we're all making a pile of money and having cheap money again, like in the majority.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, been there, done that, and we're still picking up the pieces. So I really hope they're more careful with it. I get the stimulus and how it's supposed to work, but I really hope they're careful with it, because we're still feeling the effects of that. So, but all in all, it's better news than things going up more.
So we've got a number of listings right now, and what we've seen is as soon as that rate was announced that it was holding steady, number of showings on our listings took a bump, like a bump upwards. Right. So what that tells me is, again, because we've got so many, not so many, but enough active listings that we can see what's happening. We don't carry a lot because we typically sell them pretty quick. There's my plug.
Oh, nice, smooth, it's good. Yes, right.
So what we have noticed is that, hey, you know what, if we were having, you know, a week of no showings, then this week 2 or 3 or 4 showings might have popped up on places that were sort of starting to get a little bit stagnant. So I think that helps, and I think the thing that it's proving to me is that buyer sentiment is improving, and the buyer sentiment is improving because buyers are like, oh, okay, hey, the rates aren't going up for a second time in a row. We talked about this before, right? The same thing happened in the spring last year. I think what we're going to see in the spring this year, I mean, I'll break out my crystal ball, is that the first rate announcement will be a third hold still. The first rate announcement of 2024 will be the third one in a row where the rates hold still. Maybe the fourth, but the fourth might also come down a quarter. And then, the second in 2024 might come down a quarter, or if it holds still, it'll be the fourth in a row where it holds still. And then the fifth would come down maybe a quarter. And if that's the case, all of that is only going to further push the buyer sentiment in a positive direction, regardless of what else is happening, right?
So I think it becomes too. I don't disagree. I think January's. I think the rate announcements are January and then March. Those are the first two. Like as it goes, February is a dead month for everything. Like there's no holiday. There's no like. Other than Family Day, right? There's no holiday. There's no this. There's nothing to do. So they skip it.
Family Day is a throw-in holiday. Let's be honest. I mean, Family Day got in our lifetime. That's not a real holiday. There's Valentine's, right? Valentine's Day. How many people do you know who are born in November?
I don't know.
There's a lot.
Really? Yeah, that's 9 months later.
Bingo. That's like February.
Yeah. We had ice storm babies, November babies, and we had COVID babies. Yeah, perfect. That's excellent. We're taking a different tour, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so January and March. So I think January is, again, if numbers come back and everything is as it is, I agree. I think it stays. And then March will be interesting to see what happens and what the markets anticipate, because we've already just this week with the hold in the overnight rate, we've started to see a couple, at least one lender or somewhere out there is a rate that starts with a 4, right? Someone got saucy and went 4.99. So that's, and that 4 is a key number. Mentally, it changes people's perception of what's available and how much cheaper it is. I encourage everybody to do the math. It's not that much cheaper than what else is out there, but it started. So that's that's the thing.
You're talking on. Sorry to interrupt. You're talking on a 5 fixed 4.99.
Yeah, 5-year fixed 4.99. Most likely, I have to double check it, but I'm pretty positive. It's default insured. So if you're buying with less than 20% down, you're going to see that 4.99. And that's interesting because, again, it's the buyer, it's the buyer sentiment. Now there's probably other things that go with that. I don't think it's probably like a full feature. It's most likely not like the best product, but it starts the thought process. And again, if you're someone who buys in December, right, or let's say January, because there's really not that much time left, and can get a 120-day rate hold on that, you've got that locked in till March, almost April. That's not bad.
I was talking with a client on the phone, whatever it was, last night or 2 nights ago, and my thought was, hey man, buy something now. We talked about this on the podcast last week, right? That 4.99 is like, at the grocery store they call that like a loss leader, right? Like, hey, I'll sell you milk. I'm going to sell it to you for less, but I'm going to put it at the back of the store. Seal Test $3.99. I don't know if Seal Test still makes milk. Nielsen, I don't know if it is anymore, but
pretty sure they both do, but you're okay.
Okay, cool. $3.99, but it's at the back of the store, right? And they're losing money on it, but you got to walk through the whole store to get there. So like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And loss leader, that's the same as that $4.99 rate, right? Or like it's a bait and switch, right? Hey, you got $4.99. Oh well, do you have 20% down? You don't get $4.99. Oh, do you have are you born in the third month of Aquarius? Then you don't get, like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you want to also do a purchase plus improvements? You can't do it. Oh, you want this extra thing? No, you can't do it. You want the ability to walk away from your mortgage in 2 years if something changes? No, you can't do it. You're locked. Oh, what's the cost going to be to get out of it? Oh, it's going to be bent over, right? Like, there's going to be all these provisions that make it like, is it really that good of a deal? Right, when you look at the whole,
and if it's there, it's probably most likely others are coming, and eventually you're going to get a full service mortgage that has that. So don't just buy and take that because it's there, right? You really have to look into it. You're probably right. I swear to God, I haven't looked into it yet because I'm like, okay, like, we see this stuff all the time. It'll get there. And yeah, that's the thing, is look into that, because that is, I don't disagree. I don't like to use the word bait and switch. It really just more is people not understanding that, right? That type of mortgage is like, you have to fit the box. You don't fit the box, you're not getting that ever. Even now, it doesn't matter. You're not getting the lowest rate out there if you want to do anything but buy owner occupied on a 5-year fixed and insured. If you want to do anything that's not that, you're not getting it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a lot of regular first-time home buyers for a townhouse, and they're trying to pick up that townhouse for, like, $550, $600, and now it starts to make that a little bit more accessible. Whereas when it's 6 and 7%, it doesn't. So
it's because it's still this, like, seeing something start with a 4 mentally will trigger people to look, and that's fine. The math will be good, which is better, because now you're only qualifying at 699 instead of 8 something because of the stress test. That, like, I quite honestly, if the goal is to stimulate in terms of housing, the single biggest thing they could do is dump the stress test. Like, if they dump the stress test and left rates at 6%, everything would actually still be okay.
Well,
it's not the 6 that's killing people. It's the qualifying at 8 that's killing people.
Right, but the problem is, the reason that our housing market doesn't spin out and do the same thing that happened in the States in 2008, 2009 is because when everybody was, and maybe we'll see some real fallout over the next couple of years, as some people are predicting, but that stress test that was originally applied is kind of helping us right now, right?
Don't get me wrong. There's a reason for it, and I can't say I completely disagree with it. I do think there has to be other things put in place, right? Like, again, I don't think it's the house that's the problem. If you look at the math that I do daily, it's not. But your $1,000 car is.
Right.
That's the problem. The access, and it's delicate because credit's not a bad thing. And we've set up our system that you have to have it. I have a tougher time I have 2 clients right now who, like, don't use credit. They're just pure cash people. And I'm like, I can't help you. They're like, but we're so good. I'm like, I know, but no one can tell that you pay for stuff. Right. Like, so it's ass backwards, but that's the thing. So it's this access to credit and how we calculate stuff and allow things to happen, which are just odd, which are just hurt in different ways. I can't vocalize it more, but I don't want to say don't go get a car.
Well, no, but at the same time, you want to use credit for things. Hey, I'll borrow money to buy things that are going to go up in value. I can guarantee you, outside of the last couple COVID years, your car will not go up in value. It is a depreciating asset.
We publicly state this time and time again, and yet we're still. And don't get me wrong, I've made some dumb mistakes with cars. Like, I got a couple great stories, but it's like, but yeah, it's even the fact that I can say this. I'll tell people, look, you can buy the house and then go buy the car. You can't buy the car and then go buy the house. So I'm not telling you to, I'm just saying, buy the house first. There's very few car places that won't give you that loan.
Close on the house first.
Close on the house. Yeah, close. Yeah. I haven't got my shirts made yet that say cars kill deals. It's coming. I have the graphic and everything.
Love it. Maybe we'll do a collab. Anyways, that is it. We'll take a quick break, hear from our sponsor. Keep your eyes and ears peeled because we might have new sponsorship coming in the new year. Some exciting things. In the meantime, our sponsor will continue to be The Real Collective. Hit that like button and share this with someone who you think might be interested in what we're talking about today. Schedule an appointment with Kyle or I directly below in the Calendly links. And if you want to scroll down to the links, you can check out the buyer or seller guide to get some information about what to do when buying or selling. We'll catch you on the flip side.
This episode of the Real Collective podcast is brought to you by Real Collective. Real Collective brings together best-in-class real estate agents and collective experts in the field to deliver the best possible service to our clients. We govern ourselves with honesty, open-mindedness, and compassion. With diverse skill sets, our agents are able to better serve a wide array of clients, including first-time buyers, first-time sellers, transferees, estate sales, investors, and rural, vacation, and luxury properties. Authenticity and transparency are pillars of our process, which allows us to put our clients at the center of everything we do. Our years of experience and knowledge allow us to deliver prestigious service and optimal results. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, contact us today at realcollective.ca.
Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the second half of the Real Collective podcast. We started the first half talking about the rates holding still and what's happening. We're now into the second half of the podcast. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who you think might be interested in what we're talking about. Second half, we're going to talk a little bit more about the real estate side, the legislation changes. TRESA's in.
So it's 1 week of TRESA.
Yes.
And everything, nobody died. Everything's good. Nobody's been sued yet.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think people are still confused. What forms do I use? How do I get this across? What are my responsibilities? All that sort of stuff. Thankfully, it is a little bit of a slower time of year typically. So, we switched over, I think, half of our listings to the new paperwork, to the new documents, so that we can, do the cool stuff. Hey, here's the contents of another offer. How much of the contents of this other offer are you allowed to disclose? What about representation? Do you want to be represented by yourself? What if you don't want to be represented by yourself? What if you want limited service? Kind of limited service. How's that different from customer representation as opposed to client representation? There's just a lot of nuance to it. Again, one of the reasons we call ourselves the Real Collective. Real is an acronym. It stands for Real Estate Agency Leaders. This is a complete change to agency, so sort of being on the cutting edge of it. We've got one agent in our group, Greg, who has really dove deep into how all of this works and what it means and what the mechanics of it are. I did too, but maybe not as deep as Greg. Anyways, it's been fine. Really, we're doing the best that we can for our clients. We're putting their needs ahead of our own, and we're documenting the conversations that we're having with them, and it's okay. So
I think it's going to be, I think what I see there too is that this is going to be there's an opportunity here for people, realtors, to really stand out, right? Like if you can communicate, I think if you can communicate, the way I see it as a consumer, but someone who's in the industry too, but I say it like this: mortgages are boring. Like there's no way. Mortgages are boring. But if we can communicate through social media or however, and spin it so you get the point across without being boring, then it works out. And I think there's a huge opportunity for you guys to do that, because I'm sitting here as a quasi geek about this stuff saying, well, what is the difference for this and this and this and this? Like, I'd like to know. I also don't want you to dictate it to me. So and we'd kill the podcast, but because it's not going to be super interesting for everybody. But if there's a way to spin that content in bite-sized pieces, I think there's a huge opportunity for realtors like you guys at Real to get out ahead of it and just be like, boom, like we know how this works. Don't worry, right?
And that is absolutely on our to-do list.
Yeah.
For this month, for the next months. I think a lot of real sort of explainer videos really hit well, right? Because people use Google as a search engine, right? So explain to me, what is this paperwork I'm signing, right? So why do I need to sign this paperwork? I think all that stuff would be really, really good for consumers. I mean, bite-sized piece. The real change with regards to TRESA about agency is a consumer needs to make a decision how they want to be represented. Sorry, that's not a change. That's the same as it's always been. The consumer gets to choose how they would like to be represented, and they need to know in advance that if they choose that they want to be represented as a client and they're buying a listing that I also have, that they're going to be in multiple representation. And what does that mean to them? If I'm serving you as a client and the seller as a client, I cannot provide the same level of service as I normally would because we're now in multiple representation. The value that we have as the Real Collective is because we're a group, we can have one agent on the team who's a designated representative for the seller and another agent on the team who's a designated representative of the buyer. They can negotiate, and as the consumer, your best interest, whether you're the buyer or the seller, can still be protected. Whereas before, it couldn't, because even though we had a team, we were still technically in multiple representation. So the seller and the buyer would both need to agree to be in multiple representation, and the agent could not say, hey, here's what you should pay for this house. Here's what you should accept for this offer. Here's what fair market value is for the house. Here's why I think that. It was all just, bringing two people together as opposed to negotiating for the best interests of each particular client, right? So I think that's the big one in terms of agency.
Now, the word that's come up from the minimal stuff that I've listened to, and this is the one that it stuck out. That's why it's in my head. Is the offer process, and like the word auction style keeps coming up. And what is like, that could be a bigger conversation here, but what is that? Like, how does the auction thing, like, just to context that, I think of auction as in like, hey, right? And like, I think in Australia, yeah, exactly. And I think in Australia, and even sometimes in the US, they have that ability of like, hey, we're putting this house out, come with your cashier's check or your draft, because you're buying it, right? Like, you see that, I'm like, that's crazy. So that's what I think. So how does that come into where we are?
Storage wars for houses. I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, yeah. Have you not seen that in like Australia? They do that?
Yeah, on the street, like, just like, okay, got. Yeah, I've seen videos of it. I mean, I haven't seen it in person because I've never been to Australia, but yes, I've definitely seen videos. Here's the thing. In Ontario, auctioneers have been exempt from the rules of the Real Estate Council of Ontario.
Okay.
Up until now, the auctioneers have been able to sell a farm and its contents and auction off that property.
Really?
Yeah. So sometimes, you've got a content sale and they sell the house via auction, and those auctioneers were not required to have a real estate license or abide by any of the rules or regulations around, selling real estate. So now, if you want to do that, you need to have a real estate license. You need to. So the idea is, if you are, and what that means to the general consumers, if you are a consumer and you say, hey, look, I want to sell my house, you can choose, if you get offers in, you can choose, hey, look, I want to disclose the contents of this offer to everybody else who has made an offer. Or I want to disclose the contents of this offer to everybody who's shown an interest in this property. Or I want to disclose the contents of this offer to everyone. I want you to advertise that this is how much money I have for my house. So I think where the model has the potential to go is an eBay style house selling.
So I got an offer, and I look over it with you, and I say, yeah, I don't know. So I just say, I blast it on Facebook basically and say, hey, look, guys, I just got an offer for my house for this much money with these conditions. Anybody else want to beat that?
Yep. Yep. So
Interesting.
now where is it going in terms of technology package that's aligned with that? Is you log on to realtor.ca and you get an updated ticker, and maybe the agents say, hey, look, every offer that comes in must have a 72-hour irrevocable, which means your offer is good for 72 hours. And then that's the price that's posted on realtor.ca, because there's some app that has taken this information and loaded it onto realtor.ca. And you can look as a regular Joe on realtor.ca and say, here's the listed price, here's the top price, and here's the conditions on the top price. That's where I think that we're going long term, because the whole idea around TRESA, which is Trust in Real Estate Services Act, is to be more transparent. Well, how much more transparent can you get than this house is listed for $699? The highest current bid is $680. Like you said, do you want to beat that? Yeah, you know what? I'll go in and buy that house. I'll offer them $685. I'll offer them $690. Now the realtors might down the road start to put things in place to say, hey, minimum bid increases are $5,000 or minimum bid increases are $10,000.
Yeah.
So
right? You can't buy it for $1 more.
Yeah. At an auction, right? And a quarter, like that one guy.
Yeah.
So something along those lines to sort of, set the parameters. But you can be sneaky as a seller. You can choose to only disclose some of the contents of one of your offers to everybody and some of the contents of your other offer to everybody. So, hey, I've got, let's say I've got 5 offers, and I've got one that's unconditional. We're listed at $650. I've got one that's unconditional for $650, and I've got one that's conditional for $670. Well, I can go out and I can say, hey, look, I've got 5 offers, and 2 of those offers, one has a price of $570 and one has no conditions. So essentially you're telling anybody, hey, look, come in and offer, maybe you don't have to do whatever I said, 670 or 570 or whatever the number is. Maybe you can do 660 or 560 or whatever. I forget if I said 5 at the beginning or 6, but it doesn't matter.
6.
Right. So maybe you can do 660 unconditional and still get it, because you can read between the lines that, well, you don't have 670 unconditional. Otherwise, you tell me you've got 670 unconditional. Right. So maybe you can go in and scoop in underneath. And then the seller can change their mind at any time. The seller can say, I don't want to disclose the contents of the offers, receive all of the offers, and then at that moment say, you know what? I do want to disclose the contents of all of these offers. Here they all are, world, right? Or maybe not world, maybe just these people. So there's going to be tactics and strategies which evolve over the next little while, because we have, as top tier agents, we have access to new negotiation strategies that we haven't had in the past. So it's kind of exciting for like a negotiations nerd or like a systems nerd like me. But who knows? I mean, this is where I see it going. Am I going to be on the cutting edge of developing the software that's going to spit the data out to realtor.ca? No, I will not. If it exists, I'm happy to, to play around with it and see if we can take advantage of it. But during COVID, when people were getting offers, listing for $1 million and selling for 1.3, you know what the next best offer on the 1.3 was? 1.175. So if that was an open bidding scenario, would the 1.3 have actually been 1.180?
Yeah.
What are you going to choose if you're a seller? Different markets are going to call for different strategies, and all this really is for us as an agent is another tool in our toolbox. Right? You need to hire the right agent when you're selling your house who says, yeah, I've got all the different tools. That's not the right one for you. But if you're selling a townhouse in Barrhaven, and as the listing agent, you call the guy who just sold the house down the street that looks exactly the same in the same sort of price point, and he said, you know what, we had 12 offers. And of those 12 offers, I can tell you, all of them were peppered around this price, and this one was an outlier. Okay, well, maybe if we get those people that were all peppered around the same price, they didn't disclose. Maybe we choose to disclose and do open offers. Then those people who are all peppered around the same price might actually drive the price up higher. And they go look at the one that just sold and say, well, that's what we're going to have to go to, right? And maybe there's a way to reach that number again, right? So it's all strategies. We don't know how it's going to work because we've never done it before. So anybody who says, oh yeah, this is going to work this way, no. But again, we get a chance to play with it a lot more than sort of a single agent or a one-off. And we do a lot of training and talking within, get a lot of good value. The other piece I wanted to touch on just before I go is another regulatory change coming down the pipe is the RCP, the Realtor Cooperation Policy. That's not an Ontario-based thing. That is an entire country. So Canada, the CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association, is putting this out. Essentially, all it means is that as soon as you see a property, you as a consumer see a property marketed, advertised, it needs to be on the MLS for everybody to go and visit and potentially buy and see and get all the information about within 72 hours. So if you see a lawn sign, it can't be in front of that house for 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, the idea is they want to get rid of, hey, coming soon, never shows up on MLS, sold, right? And that realtor, the listing agent, double ends it, right? They don't want that happening, which fair, I get that. So that's the gist of the realtor collaboration policy.
So the coming soon can't happen anymore?
Yes, it can, but it's only for 72 hours.
I thought there was already a rule in place for that you could only do that for, like, you couldn't have it up there for weeks.
Some people did, and that was the problem. And they would go and they would double end it, and then they would say, "Oh, hey, you know what? We put a sign up. We're marketing it, we're advertising it, we're blasting it on Facebook. We're doing all this stuff to generate potential clients and leads for it." And then they call it double ended. They would represent the seller and also find the buyer for it, and then they wouldn't put it on the open market. It really is a detriment not only to the consumer but also to the seller client, because maybe if you would have had more exposure, you would have got more money for the property, right? It's kind of greedy. I mean, I think it's a good thing for our industry as a whole. So
there you go.
Yeah, man. So that was a lot of talking. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who you think might like this type of information. You can download this on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Schedule an appointment with Kyle or I on the Calendly links below. Download the buyer guide or the seller guide in the links below. And thanks so much for watching. And until next time, keep it real.
Collective.